So let's get started with competitor research and what it really means to me. So the most common practice in competitor research is essentially analyzing the market, statistics, numbers, and the technical parts of your competitor's product or service. So you go into a website, you look at the homepage or landing pages or funnels, and you think, okay, I'm going to jump in and this looks like a really cool thing. Oh, I'm sure they know what they're doing. So let's kind of jump into all that and use all that on our website. The funny story about that is, so I was working a couple of years ago, I was working with a very, very big bank. And they were obsessed with their competitor, and they kept telling me all the time that their competitor had a special form. They really wanted to do the same thing, and we should definitely do it because they know exactly what they're doing. And I went through a lot of a lot of back and forth with them because I kept saying, I really don't think this is a crucial point. I don't think this is going to improve conversions. It's not going to help in any way. But okay, I mean, let's test it. We tested it a couple of times in all sorts of ways. Did not work in any way. Fast forward a couple of years, I met someone on the team of this other bank. And they were telling me, I was asking them, I used to have a client that was really obsessed with that form on your site. And she said to me, oh, that thing, it was a technical thing we could never get rid of, and we're always stuck with it on our website, and there was no way to get rid of it, and we really wanted to, but there was no way. So it was a really funny way to look at it, but also such, the right way to look at it, because we often look at our competitors, the big competitors, and I'm absolutely sure we know why they're doing things, and that they're definitely working. But we have to remember that there's going to be many different reasons for our competitors to do something. And I mentioned this in the email that I sent you. It could be the fact that they have a technological issue. It could be the fact that they're just copying their competitors. So you never really know what lies behind the design and the messaging and the strategy of your competitors. So that's why I really advise not copying from your competitors, because it's basically just the blind leading the blind. That's kind of my approach to it. Now, as I was saying before, when you look at competitor research as a whole, most companies treat it as a way of identifying the differences between the two services or two products. So you look at the markets, statistics, features, numbers, their pricing, everything that is technical or to do with the product or the service that you're offering, and compare it. So how much do they cost? How much do I cost? What pages do they have on their website? And essentially everything that's going on their website in terms of, hey, what features do they have? Do we have these features, etc. So when I talk about competitor research, I don't mean that. I actually mean emotional competitor analysis. So I'm not comparing features or the product or the pricing, but I'm comparing something far more profound. And let me show you what that looks like. So there are many advantages to this type of competitor analysis, but these are the three top ones. So the first one is understanding your prospects' emotions towards your industry. And first, you basically get to learn and really understand how your potential customers or clients feel about your industry, how they feel about you, and how they feel about your individual competitors. So it's a really cool way to get an understanding of how people feel. So for example, the easiest example is like the diet industry, when people are trying to lose weight. So how do they feel about the industry that is selling them all these solutions? How do they feel about you and your solution? And how do they feel about your competitor? And this is the same with everything. So if Apple were to do a competitor research, then for them it would be understanding how people perceive the computer and laptop industry, just because they want to, focus on that, and how people treat PCs, and then also how they treat that, how they feel about them. So it's just a really cool way of identifying those different emotions that people feel towards your industry, yourself, and your competitor. Number two, as you can see, is value proposition research. And it acts as another step in the direction of identifying that value proposition. Now, next week, we have a guest speaker, an expert, Momoko. She is going to walk us through the exact process of finding your value proposition. It's so interesting. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but when you understand what people are currently missing, what challenges them, in existing solutions, and how they feel about the different existing solutions that are out there, it's so much easier to identify where you can step in. So competitor research is a key part of identifying your value proposition, and it's a great way to to get a better understanding of where you should be, what kind of gap you should be filling. And lastly, which is probably, the best of all, because it helps you mine copy, messages, and high converting strategies. So the best copy that my team and I have ever written was taken straight out of the words of our target audience. So I've spoken about this example a couple of weeks ago for the online parenting program that we were working with. We have one of our headlines is, everyone knows being a parent isn't easy, but no one told you it would be like this. That's the headline. It's a very successful headline. And the reason is because we found it in a parenting Facebook group. So we made a few edits to it, but we didn't write the copy. It wasn't us making up. We weren't these geniuses who came up with amazing copy. We were using prospects' words. We were using the people who actually use these type of programs, who would actually be good clients or a good fit for this kind of program. We were using their words. So that's why competitor research is so cool, because you get to find those messages and those headlines. And instead of staring at that blank screen and trying to figure out what you're going to write, you actually find a lot of content, a lot of copy and messages that you can use on landing pages, websites, emails, ads, and more. So let's talk a bit about what this kind of research looks like. So the first step is actually, to get started, you need to choose 5 of your top competitors. Now, I get this a lot, and I actually have this with a current client that I'm working with, is that they are absolutely positive that they only have 3 direct competitors. That's all they have. Now, granted, now that I'm doing visitor surveys, the visitors are mentioning completely different competitors to them. So that's a different thing to think about. But my client is absolutely sure that they only have a certain amount of competitors and they only have to think about them. But in fact, the visitors are thinking about many other companies and many other solutions. So even though they don't think they are competitors, their prospects do. So that's why when you're choosing your competitors, they don't have to be direct ones that offer the exact same thing that you do. It could be anyone who targets your prospects and might take their attention away from you. So, for example, if you were a theme park and you were selling tickets to your theme park and there was a water park on the other side of the road, then they would be obviously your competitors. But they're not doing the exact same thing. They're just offering another type of experience. It could be an escape room or stuff like that. So don't always think about just the direct competitors. Think about those people, those companies that may be taking away your prospect's attention or diverting it to somewhere else. Now, what we like to do is to look at each of our competitors and evaluate according to their strategy. Let me show you what I break this down into. So I break it down into 4 different categories. 1 is the messaging. Number 2 is the strategy. Number 3 are the emotions. And number 5 is I compare the different design, layout, the images that they're using, and just the all-out design strategy. So these are the 4 categories that I look at when I'm looking at competitors and trying to identify the differences. I look at these things. So the first thing that I do is I look at the website and I think about their messaging, I think about their strategy, I think about their emotional triggers, and I think about their design. So to give you an idea, I thought I'd show you some examples of how we do this. So my favorite example is Zoom. We're using Zoom, as you've probably noticed. But when you look at their website, let's look at that from the 4 categories that we mentioned. So we have the messaging, which is Zoom, a leader in the 2018 Gartner Magic Quadrant for Meeting Solutions. So they're essentially talking about themselves and the fact that they've won multiple awards. Their strategy is the fact that they are very big and well known. When you look at the different images that they're using, so their hero image is basically a graph showing you how good they are. Let's look at a different competitor, and we'll put all this together into the table in a minute, and it will make a lot more sense. Then we have Skype. Join the millions talking on Skype, talk, chat, and collaborate. We've got that hero image. Nikki says, Zoom, love to hate them, definitely, especially when you're paying them so much money every month. So then we have Skype, and Skype uses a whole different strategy. We've got the whole idea of join the millions talking on Skype. So everyone's using Skype. You should use it too. We've got the image on the right, which is basically screenshots of fantastic of how to use the product. And then we have Blue Jeans, and Blue Jeans basically says, do your best work, video, audio, and web conferencing that works together with the collaboration tools you use every day. So we have these really interesting competitors, 3 different competitors. And I'm going to show you how I kind of look at them in that term. So let's talk about Zoom, Skype, and Blue Jeans. In terms of messaging, so Zoom focuses a lot about their awards and their success. It's all about how good they are, how award-worthy they are. I have a feeling that it's to do with the fact that they probably have a lot of investors, and that's a big thing for them. But that is essentially their messaging. For Skype, they talk about the fact that everyone uses their software. They also mention the benefits, so you can talk and chat and collaborate. And I always mention this because it is important to point out that a lot of companies, when they present stuff on their homepage, they immediately dive into the features and what you can do with the product versus actually talking about value and the strategy and what they can get from it. Blue Jeans is business focused. So they talk about, doing your best work. So it's their value proposition is actually the fact that they focus on business and they are very business oriented. Now, when we think about their strategy, this is really interesting because Zoom basically talks about the fact that they're very big. We've won awards. You can use the best of the best. This sentence, by the way, reminds me that yesterday I was doing competitor research for one of my clients, and one of the competitors' website had a headline that just said, "See why we are the best." that was the headline. So that made me laugh and also want to throw away my laptop. But so Zoom is kind of leveraging that type of strategy. So they're not saying, hey, we're the best, but they are essentially saying that in a different way. They're just kind of mentioning the fact that they're big, they've won all these awards, they're the best of the best. Look at this graph, we are amazing. When we look at Skype, they're actually using the bandwagon effect. And the bandwagon effect is a psychological trigger. And we'll get to this actually next month when we start talking about psychological triggers and how you can use them. But the bandwagon effect is essentially a bias that we have in our mind. And what that means is that many times, most people want to be like everyone else. So if everyone is using one thing, we all want to do the same. We all rush over to the same products, the same services. the same platforms. We all want to be like everyone else. So they're actually using that bandwagon effect. Everyone uses the software. Join millions of people who are already using Skype. And that's the idea of just making you feel like everyone's already using it, so how come you're not? And then we have Blue Jeans, so they're dedicated to your business. They're connecting you to existing tools. That's one of the things that they mention there. It's easy to set up. You can use all the different tools that you have there already, and integrate with them really easily. And that's kind of their strategy. They're very business focused, as opposed to maybe Skype that tries to say it all. They're like talk and chat and collaborate. So we're family oriented, but we're also business oriented, and we do everything. Then if we look at the emotional triggers, so the thing about emotional triggers is many times companies might not even think about how they're making their prospects feel. They're not really attentive to the emotions that they're sending out. But when I look at these three competitors, and I'd love to hear from you guys how you kind of see this and what you think their emotional triggers are. But these are the things that I think are kind of coming off. These are the kind of emotions that they're portraying with their design. So essentially, Zoom is saying that you will be the best if you use the best. And I think that is a great direction. I don't think it's done really well. Deb says status, prestige, Skype is belonging and affinity. I love that. And yeah, so when I'm talking about Zoom, I think you can be the best by using the best, prestige, and social and self-image. And I think that's really important too, because when you use Zoom, you want to feel good about yourself, and other people are going to admire you for using Zoom because, wow, they're the best. As Deb wrote, I said with Skype, belonging, accepted, part of something bigger, trust, reliable, social image. So it's all about how you will be a part of something much bigger. Everyone's using it, so you can trust it. It's reliable, and everyone knows what Skype is. And then with Blue Jeans, I look at it as simplicity, inspiring, unique, self-image, and promising. And what I mean by that is they put a lot of emphasis on the fact that it's unique, it's for your business, so it will improve. And self-image is an emotional trigger that focuses a lot on how I feel about myself. So I want to feel successful. I want to feel good about the way I run my business or the way I run meetings. So it's a good way to kind of, there's different ways you can trigger self-image, and we'll get to that, but it's just another way that I think that Blue Jeans is going in. And I love, Deb, you said success and getting ahead, and I love that. I think that's very correct. Let's look at the design and the layout and the images that each one of these companies are using. So Zoom's hero image is essentially a comparison graph. So it's focused solely on the company itself. The page, is only, and that's, by the way, another interesting thing. There's no sign up button. I don't know if you noticed, and we can go back to the pages in a minute so that you can reevaluate them. But the page is not even about signing up. It's about downloading a report. So they're really heavy on themselves and how amazing they are. Skype it's a very interesting contradiction, because on one hand, they talk about the fact that millions of people are using Skype around the world, but instead of supporting that with an image, maybe a map of the world and showing the different pinpoints, or maybe just showing the connections between the different countries in the world, they have a screenshot of their product. Now, this is a very, very go-to strategy by most product companies. They just kind of throw a picture or a screenshot of what their product looks like on a Mac, on a tablet, and on a mobile phone, and they call it a day. But it's actually a very product-focused approach. And I actually in Emotion Sells in my course, I talk a lot about this and how I think it's from what I've seen and from what I've tested, it's a very wrong approach, because when someone lands on your homepage specifically, and even on your landing page, they're not interested in what your product looks like or how it works. First, they need to feel the value. They need to understand it. And if Skype is going for the value of everyone's using it, and you want to join the revolution and join, use the tool that everyone else is using, they should support that with an image strategy that makes sense, that kind of really does connect to that message. When you put on, when you kind of put that image of a Mac with a screenshot of what every single communication platform looks like, essentially, you're basically taking away from that message. So I always advocate for testing images in like the strategy of your images. Sorry. So essentially, if you're going to be product focused, and if everyone on your team is really product focused and they want to show an image of the product, then great, but let's test that against a strategic image. And Blue Jeans kind of does it all. So they are showing an image of a woman, and we'll go back to that in a second, who is using her phone to talk to her team back in the office. So they're kind of connecting people in and out of the office. They're very business focused. Let's go back to these pages. So here's Zoom again, just so you can see that, and how focused they are on themselves and their product and how good they are. There you can see that orange, beautiful button that says read the report. Then Skype, so we have joined millions of people who are already talking on Skype, and we have Blue Jeans, just as a reminder of what these pages look like. So it really is interesting to look at websites, competitors' websites, in a different way. I don't know if any of you have done this before, but it does give you a different look on companies versus, wait, what feature do they have? How much do they cost? What sections do they have on their homepage? Just doing a strategic evaluation of what's going on the page. What message are they actually sending? Is their image supporting that message? And where do I fit in? So this is the first step of doing a competitor research. Whoops, I have to do all this again. Now, once you've actually filled this in, now for my students, by the way, in the course, I actually urge them to do it for 10 different competitors. And I also like to look at mobile versus desktop, because it's always an interesting look and approach, because mobile is very different than desktop and you want to treat it very differently. Granted, you can look at Google Analytics and see how much mobile traffic you're getting. If you're getting 90% mobile traffic, then when you're looking at these websites, don't bother looking at desktop, look at their mobile variations. Okay, so after we filled this in, we're gonna ask ourselves, do we see any common themes? Are there any common directions, common messages? We don't really want to, blindly copy our competitors. So what we can do is, and this is a really cool, if you're looking for a cool A/B testing idea. So what you can do is, after you've kind of reviewed all of these competitors of yours and you've started seeing these common themes and messages, what you can do is create a new variation for your website or for your homepage, for your landing page, that is similar in the strategy to your competitors' one. So you want to create something that's very different, plus something that's very similar to your competitors, and test it to see what works better. It's a really cool way to just run a strategic A/B test and actually have an hypothesis behind it. Let's move on to the second and the next step in essentially competitor analysis, and that is message mining. So this is so simple and so easy to do that it baffles me that so many companies don't do this. So people that are similar to your prospects, or actually people who should be your clients, are reviewing and talking about your products, your services, and your solutions, your ideas online. they're talking without anyone being involved. They're chatting, they're having conversations. They're doing this online. They're doing this in product reviews and testimonials, in blog posts, in forums. They're doing it on Yelp, on Amazon. They're doing it on Quora, TripAdvisor. So many websites today aggregate comments by people, reviews, and just conversations that people are having about your product, your competitor, and your industry. Our job is to go to these sites and listen for all of these. So I've just put a few of these on the screen here: testimonials and reviews, blog posts, forums, discussions, comments on Facebook groups, and Twitter feeds. Guys, this is an amazing way to hear what people really have to say without interrupting them or getting in their way. They are being authentic. They're just commenting. They're just saying what they think. You know, as I was saying at the beginning, some of our most high converting headlines and messages and strategies have come from this type of research. So the reason this works is because what you're doing is essentially finding your prospects' words and mirroring them on your page. So they're more likely to see themselves on the page and connect with you than they would when you're creating your own content and just trying to make up words. So this is so simple. You could literally do this right now, and that is going into your competitors. So if, for example, if you're an e-commerce site, then it's even easier because you go into your competitors' websites and you look at the reviews that they're getting. But even if you're B2B, if you're a SaaS company, there are websites that aggregate comments, that aggregate reviews by people. You can go into Quora, you can go into LinkedIn groups, you can go into so many different social platforms and find these conversations and pull out these amazing words that people are using, plus their reviews and the copy. So let me show you what I mean by that. So I think I showed you an example of the presentation software that we worked with a couple of years ago, but this is a few screenshots from the stuff that we investigated and researched back in the day. So it's a presentation software. So we went into different conversations online and in review websites to figure out what people were saying about the presentation software industry. So the most well-known one back then was Prezi, and people were obviously using Keynote and PowerPoint and stuff like that. So our goal was just to go online and find, yes, by the way, you know, you're right, G2 Crowd is awesome for that, when it's authentic and it's not written by the company team, by a member of the team. But essentially, this is what message mining looks like. This is just one website that we were using to find these messages. And what's really cool is that it helped us really understand what people care about. So when you go into these websites and it says, I won't read the whole comments, but it helped me to showcase my presentation skills. Look at that perception. It's not about the work that they've done or the reports that they have. It's about showing their presentation skills. People see the presentation and they think, oh, well, yes, Prezi. It would be cool if Prezi did something new that could bring more attention, helpful and bring attention to our public. Basically, we use these different sentences to find common themes and understand what people are saying about the industry, how they feel about it, what their complaints are, what their hesitations are, what are the things that make them really scream in delight and they get excited about. And you can do this on so many different websites and so many different social platforms. Now, once you start reviewing these messages online, I actually like to put them in this type of table. And essentially what I do is I write, okay, where is this happening? So it's in a Facebook group. Type of message is positive, and the message is, hey, customer service is always available to chat. Now, this is a cool comment that someone makes on Facebook, but it's cool to see. And again, you want to look and see find themes and reoccurring things that people are saying. In a Facebook group, someone said something negative, it's impossible to download my data. and much more. So you want to start aggregating this stuff and finding the different messages that people are using and put them in this kind of table where you're able to then segment the different reviews that you're finding, the different messages. And what I like to do is start highlighting the cool and interesting sentences that I find, or just highlighting stuff that I could maybe later swipe and use for copy. Okay, so why is this not moving? Okay, so now what we want to do is start summarizing the themes that we find. So, for example, you might say, many people mention worrying about the durability of the product, or many prospects mention they're not sure how they will evaluate the service provider they choose. So these type of themes later help you choose the right messaging on your pages and decide what to highlight in your messaging and put more emphasis in. So you can put all the positive stuff on the left and all the negative stuff on the right, and it will also later help you optimize stuff, not only in your messaging, but maybe even in your product. You can aggregate it all on this kind of table. And again, summarizing is really good because you might see reoccurring themes. So for example, with one of our clients, we found that a recurring thing was people kept saying, a good number of people are talking about how much hand-holding they need during the onboarding process. Now, this was a kind of a blow for my client because they were sure that it was really simple and that they had chat was great, but they realized that people were too dependent on them for the onboarding process. So that's an insight that helped them to later then not only craft better messaging, but also decide on prioritization. So we need to optimize our onboarding process. So there's all sorts of really cool things that you can find. Now, again, we did something so simple. We went online and we found conversations that people are already having. It's just on us to find these conversations and start putting them in these tables and reviewing them. So the next step is actually pretty simple. That's when we want to say, it's kind of a summary of everything. So what do people need to see and feel? So all this research, is later going to be used to optimize your emails and your websites and your campaigns. And it will also help get everyone on the same page. So you want to start identifying the different emotional triggers that your competitors are using, the main concerns, pains, and hesitations that people are mentioning on these different platforms and where they are. And of course, what they find, most valuable, what they appreciate, what outcomes they want. So all these things you can achieve by doing competitor research. Now, essentially, I walked you through a three-step process here. One is basically evaluating your competitors on 4 different categories. The second one was message mining. And the third one is part of message mining, where we start aggregating and finding those themes. But it's so simple to do and so easy. And actually, to answer your question, Patty, because you were saying, I work in-house at a company. How often would I need to do this competitive analysis and complete worksheet? So I think to start out, I would do it once every 6 months. It's not something that you have to do all the time. Obviously, if you can do it more, then great. But there's a big difference between essentially between popping into your competitor's website and kind of swiping a few ideas versus doing this whole analysis and going through these 3 steps. Because when you go through these 3 steps, and by the way, I like to dedicate about, I'd say, 2 to 3 hours doing this. So it's not huge. It's not going to be, it's not going to take you the whole day or a week or anything. It's 2 to 3 hours where you dedicate yourself to doing this. And when you're in the zone, when you're actually focused on doing it, you're getting much more insight and much more in-depth insight, because you're really following the steps. So you did your research on their websites, but now you can also look at the messages that people are putting out there, the conversations that they're having, what they're saying about you, about your industry, about your competitors. and everything comes and falls into place. And it's such a cool way to just figure things out and get a better perspective of how your prospects feel. So I don't think you have to spend, you don't have to do it every 2 or 3 months. You don't have to do it once a month. I think once every 6 months, if you dedicate those 2-3 hours for completing this whole process, you will get a lot out of it. Okay, so that essentially was the whole presentation where I just walked you through my process. Let me stop sharing for a second, and now I can't see anything. Hold on, I'm back. Okay, so let me just open chat and see if I missed any questions from anyone. I think that I answered the last one. So as I was saying, I think, Sophia, have you thrown in that link to our worksheets? Because I think we've...
yeah. Oh, wait, no, not that one. Let me drop that one.
So we're going to post a link to our worksheet that you can download. So everything I walked you through today, you can download and start using immediately. And I really do suggest working on that this week or the next week, just finding some time to carve out for those 2-3 hours to just spend on that and really go deeper on your analysis. Again, spend less time on the features and the pricing and stuff like that, and more on the strategy and the emotions and the design that your companies are using, that your competitors are using, plus the message mining. Sophia, I know that you you've done a lot of message mining in the past, right?
Yeah.
How do you use that?
Mostly for copy at the moment. I find that when you kind of start aggregating the themes together, the words like really shine on the page. You get some awesome language from message mining. It's so much easier than the days when I used to stare at my screen and be like, right, how do I write words again? So yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that, oh, Nikki says we need access to get in at that.
I will fix that. Sorry about that, guys.
No problem. So yeah, competitor research, important, valuable. You should all be doing it and doing it in a more profound way that will really give you some more interesting insights. And as I said, it helps you not only understand your value proposition and your place within the industry, but gives you great copy ideas and messaging ideas. So I do highly recommend doing this process. Now, a recording of this session will be available within the next 24 hours. Actually, all of our workshops are being uploaded to our blog. So essentially what happens is within 24 hours, you can go into the blog and you'll find all the workshops in there that we've already conducted, with the video, with a transcript, with the worksheet, and all the slides. So anything that you need, you can get from there, so that if people haven't been able to attend, then you can watch it there. As I said, next week, we have Momoko. She will be joining us live, and I'm actually really looking forward to this session. So I have worked with Momoko in the past with one of our clients. She is a kick-ass copywriter, one of the best I know, and she's going to walk us through her process for finding your value proposition for your business. It's incredibly insightful. It's so actionable and so easy to use. And it's going to definitely be the session where we summarize all of January, because in January so far, we've focused on customer research. And as I told you, every month is themed, and we're going to be focusing on different levels of optimization. So Momoko is going to kind of finalize that for us by talking about how to use customer research and how to find your value proposition. And I really suggest you attend live. And of course, if you can't, you can always watch the recording the following day. I see people chatting in here, so I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So, are there any questions that I've missed?
No, just an awesome statement from Marjorie.
Oh, I work in continuing education, and I just realized I could be using what they're telling me on their evaluations to write my copy. Yes. Oh my God, yes. That's awesome. That's so cool. Okay. Rob says, do you have your own process to creating a landing pages? Not sure if you were asking a question. Some of you, by the way, guys, are sending it to all panelists and not to all panelists and attendees, which means that you might not be able to see the comments. So make sure that you're hitting, that you have the 2 set to all panelists and attendees. Okay, I think I've answered all the questions, guys. Thank you so much for attending today. We will see you next week when we talk about value propositions. Yeah, and until then, just stay awesome and see you around. Bye, guys.